Thanks, guys. The lot behind us is where a grocery store once stood that Clyde Barrow, the infamous duo Bonnie and Clyde, is said to have robbed. 80 years ago today, someone entered the store along Baden Street, held up the register, stole $60, and then killed the store clerk. But historians no longer think that the gunman was Clyde Barrow. Regardless of the legends, Bonnie and Clyde still have a major tie to Grayson County. It was a former Grayson County sheriff and Sherman resident, Lee Simmons, that ultimately brought down the infamous bandits. Reporting live in Sherman, I'm Stephen Powell. Maureen, Scott, back to you. Thanks, guys. Let me read you a few of the comments. This is, quote, so disrespectful and such a disgrace to all the families that have loved ones buried at Highland Cemetery. Quote, surely there is somewhere you could have it besides the cemetery. I have some family buried there, and I think it is disrespectful to even think about it. Those are just a few of the responses that the museum got after they announced the event on their Facebook wall. They prompted an immediate cancellation of the event, and event organizers are still trying to understand the controversy. Ferris says while they're disappointed the event's canceled, she's just ready for all the, quote, hate on their Facebook wall to end. Reporting live in Durant, I'm Stephen Powell. Maureen, Scott, back to you. Heather, this is Shannon Street, where last Wednesday, residents' morning coffee was interrupted by a dangerous scene. We're standing right where Lisa Carson's car was parked. That's before the suspect slammed into it. The tree behind us is where it ultimately ended up. Amidst all the chaos, Carson and residents say they were terrified when they heard gunshots. Hampton says Carson's car wasn't the only one that was hit. He says at one point Keegley even swerved, trying to hit a Dodge Charger because he thought it was a police car. But one thing Hampton and the neighbors here can all agree on, they're just glad no one was injured in the chase. Reporting live in Sherman, I'm Stephen Powell. Heather, back to you.
Girl's mother and joins us live outside the home. Stephen?
Thanks, Maureen. An unknown man rang the doorbell at this house near Calera this morning where a 12-year-old girl was home alone. She called her mom, who told her to grab the family gun, hide in a closet, and call 911. Meanwhile, the man kicked in the back door and broke into the home. But when he tried to open the closet, she opened fire. But in a few short weeks, they'll say avast, you mateys, and set sail on Lake Texoma's first ever pirate voyage. Yo-ho, yo-ho. This is the field behind the home where, as you can see, the blaze kept going, turning into a ground fire. Behind us, there's another house that's about 50 yards away from becoming last night's second victim. So the purpose of the simulator is to test how dangerous it is to text while driving. All right, first text sent. Didn't exactly type it out correctly. I got only 2 infractions. Guess that's not terrible. So I crossed the center line, ran a red light, and almost hit a pedestrian. And that's just in 2 minutes of driving. Some people do better, some people do worse. And that's the point this campaign is trying to make. In Durant, Stephen Powell, First News. Ferris was the only school in the viewing area to receive an F. Most schools got B's and C's, but a handful earned an A, like Colgate High School. Principal John Pluckett attributes it to a great staff and a middle school that he says prepares students for the next level.
Girl's mother and joins us live outside the home. Stephen?
Thanks, Maureen. An unknown man rang the doorbell at this house near Calera this morning where a 12-year-old girl was home alone. She called her mom, who told her to grab the family gun, hide in a closet, and call 911. Meanwhile, the man kicked in the back door and broke into the home. But when he tried to open the closet, she opened fire. What started out as a normal day for Deborah St. Clair quickly turned terrifying.
I drove home at a really fast pace to try to get to her, and when I got here, the police were already here, and they had the suspect.
St. Clair's daughter had barricaded herself in the closet with a .40 caliber Glock and had 911 on the phone. But the intruder kept making his way through the house.
And then what we understand right now is he was actually turning the doorknob when she fired through the door.
Undersheriff Ken Golden says the bullet hit the intruder and that sent him running.
I saw blood on the back of his T-shirt. He was sitting down. The policeman had him apprehended at the end of the block, and all I saw was some blood coming down his back. I'm not exactly sure where his injury was, but there was some blood there.
Golden says the suspect was airlifted to a Texas hospital. They are not releasing the extent of his injuries. But the girl drew blood, and Golden says for that, she's a hero.
She did everything she was supposed to do and more. and we're absolutely so thankful that she is fine, and I admire the little girl a lot.
St. Clair says she couldn't be more proud of her daughter.
She's amazing, and I think she is. I think she's incredible, and I just haven't been able to stop hugging her and kissing her and telling her how much I love her.
Authorities tell us the suspect is 32-year-old Stacy Jones. Jones was arrested last September for allegedly abducting a mentally challenged 17-year-old girl. Golden says the family did not know today's intruder. But at the end of the day, St. Clair says for her daughter's brave acts, she was rewarded, as any hero should be, with an ice cream cone. Reporting live in Bryan County, I'm Stephen Powell. Maureen, Scott, back to you.
He opened the screen door and started pounding on the door, so I didn't answer it, and I called my mom. And she said to get the gun and go hide in the closet.
Kendra St. Clair says she stayed in the closet until she thought the coast was clear, so she went to check the back door.
And he was standing there trying to open it, and so I got really scared, and I called 911.
She went back to the closet. That's when she heard the man in the house.
When I was back there on the phone with 911, I heard the bathroom light turn on that was leading to the closet. And when I saw the door handle turn, I shot him. I guess it went through the door and went through him and went through the wall.
St. Clair thanks her mom for teaching her how to keep her calm and protect herself.
Her telling me that really made me happy that she kind of helped me through that.
She says after the gunshot, the next few minutes were one big blur. So have you ever shot a gun before?
No.
So this is your first time?
Yeah.
Her mom, Deborah St. Clair, says she's thankful for the phone calls and support they've received from their friends and family.
I think God was definitely looking down on us yesterday and taking care of my girl.
She says she's still upset, realizing it could have ended differently.
I thank God that Kendra was able to take care of her business the way that she did. I don't know if I were in that position, if I would have been able to do the things that she's done.
One of my friends told me that she couldn't do that, and I'm an inspiration to her and everybody in Calera.
But while it's been an emotional day for both, Kendra says her mom hasn't stopped hugging her.
I think she's making a bigger deal out of this than I am.
In Bryan County, Stephen Powell, First News. Back in 2007, Tammy Odom bought her husband something any guy would want for his birthday, a pirate ship. And 5 years later, they're finally bringing the Compass Rose home to Lake Texoma.
We sailed her from Florida to Freeport and then had her decommissioned, and 2 trucks later, we got her here. So it's been a work of art and pain and suffering sometimes.
The Compass Rose was built in 1968 as an 1800s replica ship. Odom says the ship has circumnavigated the globe twice and has even been in a few movies. She says Grandpappy Point is helping with reconstruction, letting them use their shop and supplies.
They actually built us a dock. Didn't charge us for it. They just said, yes, come, join our family.
Today, they're attaching yard arms to the first mast. Tomorrow, Odom says they'll put in the second mast. But in a few short weeks, they'll say avast, you mateys, and set sail on Lake Texoma's first ever pirate voyage. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Odom says they plan to use the ship for historical and educational tours for the general public.
So just have a lot of fun with her. We want to share her with the community at large.
Mark Nagel is quartermaster of the ship. He's been friends with the Odoms for years and has been a part of the project since the beginning.
When the opportunity came up to officially work for the ship as a quartermaster, I was like, get paid for sailing? You betcha, I'm there.
He says he's been doing a little bit of everything to help with restoring, but he says the most rewarding aspect will be hitting the water, and Odom agrees.
And literally, when you get on the decks of this boat, something happens to you.
Odom says they plan to hold a christening party at Grandpappy's Point on November 3rd. She says the party will double as a fundraiser for CASA. In Denison, Stephen Powell, 12 News. Arr!
Thanks, guys. The lot behind us is where a grocery store once stood that Clyde Barrow, the infamous duo Bonnie and Clyde, is said to have robbed. 80 years ago today, someone entered the store along Baden Street, held up the register, stole $60, and then killed the store clerk. But historians no longer think that the gunman was Clyde Barrow.
Digital research on the internet and the availability to consult jail records, arrest records, and other such documents made it possible for historians to conclusively prove that Clyde Barrow was not in Sherman at the time of the robbery.
Dr. Light Cummins is a history professor at Austin College. He says about 15 years ago, historians began to doubt Clyde's involvement in the murder of the store clerk, Howard Hall.
They, however, weren't even in the area at the time. Clyde and Bonnie were on their way back from Michigan.
But someone robbed the little grocery store, which stood on the corner of Baden and Wells 80 years ago today, and he killed Hall, a store clerk who was trying to prevent the robbery. Cummins says the day after the robbery, witnesses identified the gunman as Clyde, and that's all it took.
Bonnie and Clyde were big news, and so most of the papers across the United States reported this robbery as the work of the Barrow gang.
But Cummins says the duo did frequent the area and may have had a few hideouts there. Joe Polero says one of the legendary hideaways is on his property. He says he and his family like to imagine Bonnie and Clyde sitting around the fireplace.
We've even speculated that they have a little stash on the side where they would go under and stash their money. Now, I think my sons have already been down there checking it out.
Polero says the History Channel even reenacted the Bonnie and Clyde shootout here a few years ago, but even he admits there's no way to know for sure whether Clyde was the true killer or if he ever spent a night in that bungalow.
It could be myth, I don't know. It could be, total fiction.
Cummins says Bonnie and Clyde sightings were always popular, especially in this area.
When it comes to Bonnie and Clyde, one can say they're almost the Southwest version of George Washington slept here.
Regardless of the legends, Bonnie and Clyde still have a major tie to Grayson County. It was a former Grayson County sheriff and Sherman resident, Lee Simmons, that ultimately brought down the infamous bandits. Reporting live in Sherman, I'm Stephen Powell. Maureen, Scott, back to you.
In 2008, the Ferris community in Atoka County almost lost their school. The school lacked money and enrollment and teetered on the verge of a shutdown. Parents credit Superintendent Wes Watson with saving the school, but 4 years later, Ferris is flirting with closure. Last week, Oklahoma released the first ever report card grading system. It gives schools a grade of A through F. The criteria used are student achievement, overall student growth, bottom 25% growth, and whole school performance. Watson says he doesn't understand why Ferris received an F, especially since the school earned a 3.01 GPA. He sent the state an appeal. He's still waiting for the reasoning behind the grade.
How could you have signed that unless you had something to base it upon?
Joyce Gibson says her kids went to Ferris, and now she has 3 grandkids there. She doesn't want to lose their school.
All of the students have improved since last year and did better on their test scores.
Earlier this year, Ferris tried to annex with Antlers Public Schools. Watson says Antlers rejected the deal. He says the community differed on the issue. Nadine Thomas disagrees with the move to Antlers.
If I was going to move my kids, or grandkids, it would be to Atoka.
But Watson says getting an F scares many parents.
Even if it is overturned, there is a stigma.
Ferris was the only school in the viewing area to receive an F. Most schools got B's and C's, but a handful earned an A, like Colgate High School. Principal John Pluckett attributes it to a great staff and a middle school that he says prepares students for the next level.
There's always room for improvement, but yeah, we're proud of it.
He says the school earned A's on 3 of 4 core subjects tested. He also pointed to a high graduation rate. But he says the new challenge is to keep the A rating.
Never set back. Once you get complacent, then you start slipping.
But the new grading system is in its pilot year, and schools are still adjusting. Durant ISD Superintendent Jason Simmeroth says he likes the user-friendly A through F system, but he says local administrators need input.
Our issues lie with the fact that we have not been involved in the process of how these calculations are made, the things that go into determining these grades.
Robert E. Lee Elementary in Durant received a C. The rest of the schools earned a B. Simmeroth says Robert E. Lee has a smaller enrollment, making it easier to lower the overall average score.
They were 0.2 of a point away from a B. That's one kid on one test.
Simmeroth considers Robert E. Lee a B school, and he feels the rest are where they should be now, but not where he wants them to stay.
Is a B good? Absolutely. Is it where we're going to stop? No. It's good, we're happy with it, but we're not finished.
Watson turned in his resignation at Ferris. He says the pressure is creating health issues.
I've given 5 years of my life. I have nothing but good for the community
And he says it's the community that's going to have to save it. Gibson agrees.
All the parents that are sent their kids out of their places, all you got to do to save this school is get your kids back in the school.
In Oklahoma, Stephen Powell, 12 News.
Heather, this is Shannon Street, where last Wednesday, residents' morning coffee was interrupted by a dangerous scene. We're standing right where Lisa Carson's car was parked. That's before the suspect slammed into it. The tree behind us is where it ultimately ended up. Amidst all the chaos, Carson and residents say they were terrified when they heard gunshots. The shots were fired right outside Josh Cole's house.
It's scary that they fired shots on our block anyways, regardless if someone was aiming at them with a vehicle or not, you know. It's a very scary scene. I'm just glad the kids weren't home.
Though it was an alarming wake-up for residents along Shannon Street, Police Sergeant D.M. Hampton says the chase was just as terrifying to officers in the field.
We're talking about a gentleman or a person that was trying to ram, seriously injure, or kill our officers.
Hampton says police had to do whatever they could to stop Daniel Keegley immediately for the safety of officers and the general public.
There was actually times during this, there again, where he was going after officers. It wasn't like he was just trying to flee.
Lisa Carson heard the whole thing unfold from inside her home.
Well, I looked out my window and my car was gone, and then I heard gunshots. I opened up my front door and looked to the left of me, and my car was 3 houses down, smashed up into pieces.
This is Carson's car. Police say Keegley backed up into it, using it as a battering ram to try to hit an officer. He then pushed her car back into this tree. Carson blames police for using her car as a barricade.
I didn't even get so much as, we're sorry your car got smashed up in our police chase. If I hadn't went to them, they would have said nothing.
She doesn't think she should have to take out a claim on her insurance. Hampton says there may be other avenues.
You know, probably civil litigation she could lodge against the person that actually was running from the police. She may also qualify for crime victims compensation.
Hampton says Carson's car wasn't the only one that was hit. He says at one point Keegley even swerved, trying to hit a Dodge Charger because he thought it was a police car. But one thing Hampton and the neighbors here can all agree on, they're just glad no one was injured in the chase. Reporting live in Sherman, I'm Stephen Powell. Heather, back to you.